I really didn't want to make this video at first, but because of how many people are leaking the goo, I might as well at this point. So a few months ago, I figured out a card that completely shits on Super Heavy Samurai. Their no spell and trap policy makes them really allergic to an old pendulum card by the name of Perform a Pile 5 Rainbow Magician. This card is really disgusting because it can pretty much single-handedly take care of all their threats going second, and going first it's still a broken floodgate. And the Super Heavy Samurai deck at the moment plays pretty much no spells and traps. It's literally like a 40 monster card deck, so brace yourselves for this. So basically, with Perform a Pile 5 Rainbow Magician, when a player has no set spells and traps, he cannot activate the effect of monsters on the field, as well as cannot declare an attack with them. So deadass, this is literally the exact same wording as Mystic Mine, except for one little detail. Mystic Mine prevents the player from activating monster effects altogether, whereas Perform a Pile 5 Rainbow Magician only applies for the monsters on the field. So you can still use graveyard effects and in-hand effects, but to be fair, Super Heavy Samurai's main utility effects are only on the field. Like, all of their grave effects and in-hand effects don't really allow you to break spells and traps, so they basically have like no out to discard. You can technically draw into Archfiend Eccentric, but at the same time, there is not really a way to like reliably search it, and if you're going second and you have to deal with this card, and you even have that Archfiend Eccentric and you use it, your opponent might be able to protect the Perform a Pile 5 Rainbow Magician with a card like Happy Memory if he's playing purely, for example. And just like my grandmother always said, the only thing worse than a floodgate is a floodgate that you can protect. So if the only way you can out this card is with a card that destroys it, forget about it. You need something that maybe banishes the card or bounces it back to the hand. There is a card that does that, but I'll cover it in another video. Anyways, unprepared and even prepared Super Heavy Samurai players will suffer against this card. And 5 Rainbow Magician really doesn't have to be hard drawn to serve any utility. You can foolish it or mill it, and then use its graveyard effect to get it back to your scale. Oh, and by the way, it's not once per turn, so even if your opponent has something like Nurturing Exterio, Baron de Fleur, and like Borreload Savage Dragon, you can still out the full board just with like one 5 Rainbow Magician and a couple of spells and traps. And any milling deck can get this card in the grave really easily, but to be fair, Despia is the one that does it the best. They make it look way too easy because when they use Branded Fusion, they send the 5 Rainbow from deck to grave, and then they summon Albion into Mirror Jade, and then with the graveyard effect of Albion in the end phase, they can get a spell or trap card from their deck to the field face down, and then they get back the 5 Rainbow. And the Marincess deck, as well as any Brave token deck, can get access to 5 Rainbow very easily because of Adularia, which by the way is broken. And of course, Perform a Pile 5 Rainbow Magician is completely broken and purely because it's basically just a free discard for all of your quick play spells. And that deck plays like 25 cards that can be set, so you always have some way of getting back your 5 Rainbow from graveyard to the field. And going second against like any deck generically that doesn't currently have spells and traps like face down, this card's always going to be doing something because at least it baits like interruptions. And negates like Baron de Fleur are 100% useless against this card because you're just going to be using it again in the graveyard when you set a spell or trap. You only truly lose to like Spell Canceller and again cards that banish or bounce back the card. So if you play against a Super Heavy Samurai player that thinks completely outside of the box and triples out a Spell Canceller using Saryuja, you're probably screwed, but it is what it is. This still doesn't change the fact that it applies a lot of psychological pressure on every single Super Heavy Samurai players out there, regardless of if you're running the card or not. They always have to worry about potentially outing the card, just like back in the days people had to worry about potentially outing Mystic Mine in case their opponent had one. So its sole existence benefits you completely and even allows you to dictate the pace of the game. And by the way, if you resolve 5 Rainbow Magician, nothing realistically forces you to sit on it and just wait and deck your opponent out like people would with Mystic Mine. 5 Rainbow is way less two-sided than Mystic Mine is because as long as you at least have one set spell or trap card, you can do pretty much anything you want and not really care about having more monsters than your opponent. You, again, still have to worry about in-hand effects such as hand traps and graveyard effects, but usually it's not really the end of the world. I don't believe 5 Rainbow Magician is going to be seeing a lot of play in the main deck, but to be fair, some people might actually be playing 1 because if you can foolish it or mill it, then it's basically just an insta-win against Super Heavy Samurai and people are really anticipating that deck to be tier 1. And when you combine the existence of like 5 Rainbow Magician, Drool, Kaiju's Lava Golem, there's just way too much to even think of and play around as a Super Heavy Samurai player. You have to make concessions and choose which kind of blowout you want to be losing to. So for example, if I try to play around 5 Rainbow Magician or, Dark Ruler no more, I can throw out Spell Canceller, but then the issue with that is that I start losing to Lava Golem and Kaiju's. Sometimes you might make the right call and sometimes you might not. It is what it is, the RNGesus will decide. But yeah, moral of the story, just tech in 3 copies of this card if you're tired of losing against Super Heavy Samurai because this card completely destroys them. And if you're a Super Heavy Samurai yourself, I'm sorry for your loss. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know your thoughts about 5 Rainbow Magician in the comment section below. I'll see you guys there. Peace.